Hey Bruins, and welcome back to the BruinCast. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Ben.
And this week on, we have Señor Fragano. Bienvenido.
Sí, bienvenidos. Muchas gracias.
Sí, ¿cómo estás?
I'm very happy to be here with you guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Very huge fan of your podcast.
Oh.
Yeah, I've been listening to a few of them, getting to know some things about my fellow co-workers, so it's good to know.
That's like the goal of it, so glad it's helping. We're glad it's working.
Right.
It's nice to be able to connect teachers from different branches.
Yes.
Like, I think I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, but like, teachers really get to know the other teachers in their department, but it's nice to be able to kind of connect different departments. Like,
actually, jumping forward a bit to different, so with teachers, how many teachers do you know? Like, do you only know teachers within the Spanish-speaking department, or have you made friends across the different areas of school?
I have made a few friends here and there, and my goal is to get to know more friends. And this is a really good excuse to go and visit them, you know,
Yeah.
and talk about what I have learned from them on your podcast. So, yeah, that's my goal. At least, hopefully, I get to know one teacher every month. You know, that's my goal.
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't like to assume that everyone knows who people are, even though, especially in the P buildings, they're pretty famous. So, want to give us a quick introduction of what do you teach here?
Sure. Here I'm teaching this year Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. Last year I also taught Spanish 3. Previously, and this is my 11th year here. 11 year teaching. Maybe the 12th year. I don't even remember the number, but
Yeah.
I have taught all the levels except for AP, and I had the opportunity to teach Spanish for native speakers. Yeah, for about 4 years I did that.
So is that at a high school or a college?
Yeah, it was at a high school, the Bay Area. I know you, Ben, are from the Bay Area, right?
yeah.
So in a high school setting, what does it look like to have a class for native speakers? Is it to replace the Spanish a foreign language class, or how does how would they fit that class into the school curriculum?
Yeah, well, it's a class where you speak more Spanish and you don't really teach the basics because they already know the basics. We focus more on the grammar, a lot of the culture, a lot of writing. So a little bit more advanced, let's say something previous to AP,
Okay.
or between the level 3. And we used to have at the other school where I taught Spanish 2, so kind of that level.
That's interesting. So how did you get into teaching, looking back 12 years or 11 years?
Well, this happened in high school. I didn't have an idea what I wanted to be until I took this philosophy class, and the philosophy teacher, I really enjoyed his class. He really got me into teaching. He was kind of a very good role model for me. So wow, I want to be like him,
So philosophy, because you haven't had the chance to teach AP Spanish, where there's probably more room to teach that. But in your Spanish 1 through 3 classes, have you been able to work in that philosophy or that side of teaching into those classes?
Yes, something that I noticed is that he was himself and he didn't try to be someone else. So I always try to be myself when I teach. But yeah, always need to be careful, with some discipline issues. Always want to be kind, but also be firm, right?
Yeah. I imagine as a teacher, it's the hardest thing to strike the balance of where can you give leeway and where can you have fun, but then where is that too much where students...
And something that you gotta know, is that in Mexico, because I went to high school in Mexico, back in the days, once you finish junior high, you are obligated to continue with education. So high school, it was something different for me, where I was just free to do whatever I wanted. And sometimes, you try to new things and you say, okay, now I can skip a class. Whereas in here in high school, you're still obligated to go to this class and the next class. If not, you're probably gonna get a call home oh, this student is not here. But it's like a college kind of type thing in Mexico, going to high school.
So it's interesting. In AP Spanish, one of the things we've talked about is education systems in the U.S. and then in other countries. And so, Señora Walker, she's from Spain. And so in Spain, it's much, if Mexico is one end where high school's not mandatory, and the U.S. is the middle ground where it's mandatory, but it's not as well funded or not as taken seriously. In Spain, high school is, students are there a full-time job all day. So how do you think in Mexico it developed to where where high school was less important, and the U.S. Or high school is kind of the middle ground importance, and in Spain, like high school is like really a full-time job for students?
Well, I think it's more like in the more towards the government, like all the budget that they can assign to education. I think that it works that way. It's more, if we don't have enough budget, the government, then they wouldn't assign that money for the education in high school or something way more advanced, like college.
Yeah.
Do you find that in Mexico that they place more focused on education or like workforce? Because I mean, here it's like really like encouraged, like you have to go to high school, and you can either like go into the workforce or go into college to help you get into the workforce.
Right.
But from my experience, from my traveling in Europe, they place a lot of focus on like going to college to like really finish it out, as opposed to what some people do here, and they go to either trade schools or just go straight into the job market. How does Mexico fare up there?
Well, Mexico, they focus more, as you said, to the workforce. And yeah, they don't have, in Mexico, the government don't provide that money for education. Like once we finish junior high, it's mostly like you are on your own. And then there are very few public schools that support students beyond junior high. And sometimes you have to travel long way to go to a high school where you can get the education, the continuing education that you need. So most of the students there just decide like, I'm not gonna drive that far. I'm not gonna go and take public education, not driving, because we don't drive that young. But for example, for me, I had 3 options, and obviously I took when I wanted to go to high school, I wanted to select the one that is closest to me, and it's still like half hour away riding the public transportation. So that's something that some students say, hey, if I can't start working now, I'm gonna decide to do that. But I always wanted to continue with my education.
It's interesting you mentioned not driving as much over there. What's that like? Like, because I know here is very car centralized, but is it more like you can walk everywhere or bike everywhere, or is it more like buses and trains and public transit systems like that?
Well, in Mexico City, where I was going to high school, it was just public transportation. When I was going to a junior high, it was a walking distance, but I remember middle school, for example, I had to even walk roads that were just dirt, more rural areas, because I had to move a lot from living from my grandparents to sometimes living with my mom, back and forth.
So, growing up in Mexico, like, how is that different from what you would imagine growing up in the States would be like, and how did you kind of get to the States eventually?
Well, my mom came here as a migrant, and she had the opportunity to bring us over. So when I was probably 15 years old, she said, in a few years, you're gonna maybe come, you and your brother are gonna come to the United States. First, I got really happy about it. But then once I was here, I was a little bit sad because all my friends were there. Then not knowing the language, not knowing nobody here, the culture, it was very difficult at the very beginning.
How long would you say it took you until you kind of felt comfortable being here with the language, with knowing people, with just the environment and the changes?
Probably a long time. I would say from 3 to 5 years. The very first year, when I came to the United States, I was 20 years old already, and I didn't know any English, just like the basic words: chicken, window, door, how are you?
Yeah.
I think that's all. But yeah, it was very difficult because I couldn't communicate, and I said, no, I'm just gonna go back and be with my friends. And 1 year after, I stayed in Mexico for probably a length of the time of a year, and I didn't think about coming back here,
So what kind of prompted you to change your mind and come back here?
becoming a teacher.
Hey, well, and Ponderosa's a great school,
Oh
for big
yeah.
teachers.
Mhm.
But as good of a school as it is, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. Like, how did you get to Pondo specifically to be a teacher?
No, I'm very blessed to be here. Yes, definitely. And the main reason we're here is because my wife liked this area. I was really happy in the Bay Area, but then my wife was from the Bay Area and she was born and raised there. And she said, I need a change. And I said, but I don't. But she said, but I do.
Yeah.
And she won over time. So that's why we are here. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I liked it. I like to drive through Meter Road and see some deers. Drive carefully, don't hit them.
I hate Meter Road
So,
because I'm just starting to learn how to drive, and it's like there's no shoulder, and so it freaks me out.
Yeah, that's what we
And
gotta watch.
I almost hit a deer one time.
Oh yeah, me 3 times.
worse than the deer is bikers. Like, I don't understand why people bike on the road because there's no room to bike. They're on
Yeah,
the road.
there's no shoulder.
And it's dangerous for you. It's dangerous for the driver. I'm like, why do you do that? Like, don't ride a bike somewhere else. I
Right?
don't know. Unless you have to bike.
There's plenty of trails around here. I mean, if you need to
Yeah.
get if you need to get from point A to point B, I understand that.
Right.
But if you're just doing it for exercise,
Then
go find a trail, and it's prettier and doesn't hinder drivers as much.
It's funny for a school of Ponderosa where you have so many high school students learning to drive. Our roads to get here are not safe.
No.
Either.
And something that I miss, so my very first 3 years of teaching, I taught at Berkeley High School. And I always rode my bike to the high school
Oh, so you guys,
until until my bike got robbed, so they took it away.
That sucks.
Yeah.
So in Mexico, you talked about how you don't really drive to school. Was your first, did you really learn to drive in the States or did you learn to drive in Mexico?
I first started to learn driving in Mexico, but it was really dangerous, very, very dangerous. So my stepdad didn't trust me with the car. So when I got in the United States, I started driving when I was probably 22, 23 years old.
Yeah. So this is a random question, but I'm curious, what's the process to get a license in the U.S. if you're coming from Mexico, where probably, I'm assuming you have licenses in Mexico, but it wouldn't translate, or would you be able to take the license from Mexico and take it to the U.S. and say, here, I can drive?
Yeah, over there is just an easy process where you think you already know, and somebody who knows that, your parents says, yes, he's able to drive now.
Okay.
We're gonna be responsible for him and the car. That will hand you the driver's license. But I think it's not until you are 21 years old. Yeah, maybe 18, but I don't think the permits work the same way as you guys do it here. Where you get a permit when you are 16, 17, or even younger.
Yeah, I think 16 or 15 and a half here.
I think 15 and a half is when you can get it.
Yeah, because different states do it different, but yeah. So when you're not teaching, what is Señor Fragano do in his free time?
I spend a lot of time with my children. Yeah, I have a 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. So every time I get home, they're just waiting for me to get on top of me, play some ball or anything, board games. Yes, so I spend a lot of time with them. I also try to exercise a little bit.
So since you've had your kids, do you feel like your perspective on life has changed? How's it helped you as a teacher? How has that changed you?
Yeah, definitely. When you're by yourself, you have the freedom to do anything you like, right? Go to see friends, parties, watch games with some family, like my brother or my parents. But now that I have kids, it's no more of watching what I like, it's more about watching what they like. So I get a break there. When they are allowed to watch something, that's where I can get 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Just learning to like what they like.
Yeah.
So what shows do they like that once they stop watching it, you'll be so glad it's done that you'll never watch again?
Right. Yeah, my son right now is into Minions a lot. So yeah, and I like those movies. They're pretty good. My daughter, she liked a lot of Dora.
Oh, Dora. So you talked about that. You talked about playing sports with your kids or kind of playing ball with them. Do you play any sports yourself, or are you into sports?
Yes, I play basketball. I used to play soccer a lot, but then for to play soccer, you need at least, I don't know, so I would say 4-on-4 people, right? So it's really hard to gather 8 people. And then when I was younger, I was able to go and play with my friends, but as I got older, people started to disappear.
It's just
Move out,
harder to
yeah.
get people together.
They got family, and I had to switch sports. So basketball now is my thing, and I want to try some pickleball someday.
I gotta talk to Mr. Loudon. He loves pickleball.
Yeah, that's I heard on your podcast.
Yeah.
But right now we're in fact playing basketball with some of the colleagues that work here, like Mr. Bocelli. We're playing basketball. Alex LaBass,
Oh yeah,
same.
that's neat.
It's fun to play with them.
I feel like LaBass, he'd be like a good person to play with outside of school. He seems fun.
Yeah, it's really fun.
So basketball, do you plan to kind of get into any competitive leagues with that, or any like kind of competitions, or kind of just keeping it fun outside of school?
Yeah, we in fact have a team. It's a recreational league on Wednesdays.
Ooh.
It's also Patrick Davis. He's a paraprofessional here. He goes and plays with us. Grant Tonelli also has played with us. So it's always fun to play with them and some friends.
So how did you guys like kind of start getting together and playing basketball?
Well, I was looking everywhere, like where could I play, until I found out about that league. So the hardest part
Oh, so they
was
already had it before.
yeah,
That's neat.
yeah, and I had to recruit people or draft my players.
So do you play like any fantasy football or fantasy baseball or basketball? Do they have fantasy basketball?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was invited once and I tried it, but once I get home, it's hard for me to look at my phone because my kids they ask me, what are you looking at? What are you watching on your phone? And if I let them borrow my phone, my wife is gonna she gets really mad. Like, don't let them see your phone. Yeah, we are trying to keep devices away from the household.
So yeah, so like speaking of devices and kids, like from when you were growing up to now, like what are some of the biggest changes in society and like in the world that you've had to adjust to kind of parent your kids? Because obviously, back when you were a kid, like YouTube wasn't a thing, TikTok wasn't a thing. Like those are new issues. So how have you had to adjust how your parents parented you to your kids?
Yeah, I try to do all the work that I can possible here. That way, in my classroom, that way when I get home, I don't have to open my computer, which in fact, one time I was working on my computer, my Chromebook or laptop,
Yeah.
and my son came over and he closed it and it smashed my hand, and it kind of broke a few things in the computer, and it didn't work anymore, so I had to buy a new one. I said, no, I need to finish everything I need to do in school, because if I get home, they want to either play with me or play with the computer, so I'd rather have them play with me, right?
Yeah, I think. So, looking ahead in 10 years, where do you see yourself?
Probably teaching. Yeah, that's something that I still enjoy and I will be enjoying. That's my plan still.
Like I know, like when I had you, like we talk at lunch and stuff. You talked about like wanting to one day teach at like a university where you can teach the history of Mexico or something else. Like, do you still want to try and do that? Do you think?
Yes, and for that I will need to get back to school or college and continue with my studies. Teaching or learning more about the history of Spanish, and maybe in the future I could teach at a college level, a university. Probably you need a doctors too, right? So that's something that I really need to think about. Right now my priority are my kids, and I want to spend the most possible time with them.
Yeah. I mean, they're only young for so long. So,
Mhm.
and you said they're what, 8 and 6 or 8 and
And 5.
5? Sorry,
Mhm.
yeah. So they'll grow up fast. But yeah, well, I mean, unless there's anything else you want to talk about, we can probably start wrapping up here.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for your time today. Good talking to you.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.